Welcome back to the basement. I'm Steve Lewis. As you might recall, a while back I did a series featuring Carl Wilson's guest appearances on other people's records. This week I'd like to launch a similar series for Brian Wilson, which is a little bit trickier. So much of Brian's work outside the Beach Boys in the 60s were really more side projects than guest appearances, and a lot of those we've already discussed on the channel. Others, I'm sure, will be coming up shortly. Therefore, I'd like to start this series with the 1970s. That still leaves quite a few early 70s guest appearances that we've talked about here for one reason or another, and I'll go over those pretty quickly. Still, there are plenty of really interesting ones that we haven't discussed, but before we get started, I'd like to take a minute to talk about a package that I received from our friend in Southern California, Chris Murray. I knew a package was coming from Chris. I had no idea of the contents, and I filmed this little segment when it arrived. Please check it out. So I've received this mystery package from Chris Murray, our friend in Southern California. He told me it was coming. I have no idea what's in it. I've sliced the tape open already, but I haven't seen what's in it. So let's take a look. Break the last little bit here, and you can be surprised along with me. So here's a card or a note of some kind. Here's a box of goodies, or maybe just stuff that I told you I was going to send since July. And then there's more here, but it looks like an inventory list, kind of. So we'll go through it, and then if I need more clarification, we'll go back. Looks like that's just packing, but I'll check it more closely. Nicely packed, Chris. Thanks. Oh, gonna need the scissors here. Maybe 45? Well, no, I don't know. This is quite a pack of them. This is pretty heavy. Let's see here. You did a nice job, Chris. You needed to pack it well. The box itself was kind of crushed at the edges, but I don't think anything inside got damaged. Okay, oh man, packed it for rain and... Oh wow, cool. Picture sleeves. Oh, wow, oh, this is so cool. I was just looking. Well, I'll have to show you. But coincidentally, there's something in here I was just looking at buying on eBay, and I'm so glad that I held off. Wow. Goodies is right. Already I can tell this is not just stuff. Jan and Dean, you really know how to hurt a guy picture sleeve. I was just looking at this on eBay and thinking about picking it up. Fortunately, I didn't. Thanks, Chris. That is phenomenal. Let me see what we've got here. It's getting late in the picture sleeve. We've got Get You Back in a picture sleeve. We've got another Get You Back in a picture sleeve. Lady Liberty and California Dreamin'. We've got Shutdown and Surfing USA. Wouldn't It Be Nice? God Only Knows. Oh, really? Wow. Hold on. I Get Around and Don't Worry, Baby. I don't have the vinyl of this. I've got a picture sleeve, but I don't have the vinyl. So that's great. Barbara Ann picture sleeve. This is one I didn't have and have been looking to purchase or looking to find. Man, that's phenomenal. Thanks so much. Darlin', nice. Oh, Little Old Lady from Pasadena. That's fantastic. Surfer Girl and Little Deuce Coupe. I should have known that. She Believes in Love Again. Is this the promo or is this the? Nope, it's the commercial version with It's Just a Matter of Time on the B side. And She Knows Me Too Well picture sleeve. Man, that's God. I'm sure glad I didn't haul off. It would have been just the thing that I would have hauled off and bought that Jan and Dean sleeve on eBay. But fortunately, my cheapness paid off. I didn't. Being so reluctant to part with any money, paid a dividend this time. Let's see what's in here. Man, Chris, this is just so nice of you. Thanks so much. I mean, it's like Christmas in October. Ah, this must be like paper. Oh wow, what is this? This may take some sorting because it looks like it's maybe oh cool. It looks like this is maybe some promo for the Light album. A biography of the Beach Boys. I'm not sure what period or what that's from. Oh, there's a lot of little bits and pieces in here. Wow. Beach Boy fun newsletters, lots of those. Oh, this is great. This is going to take a while to get through. I can't really do it right here on camera. I'll take a look at this and follow up with a little bit extra later on. So I'm back. I've had a few minutes to sort of review what was in that envelope. And as Chris says in his note, it's mostly stuff that he got when he was a member of the Beach Boys fan club in the mid-'80s, including these Beach Boys fun newsletters. There's some other cool stuff like I Love Beach Boys bumper sticker and this really cool Get You Back bumper sticker, I Love Beach Boy badge. And there's a lot of really interesting ephemera in here, and I'm sure there's a lot in these that I'll want to share. I did run across this one from August 8th, 1986, encouraging people to write to MTV to get them to play Rock and Roll to the Rescue on MTV. I'm sure there's a lot of equally interesting things in here. I think the way I'm going to try to present this, since I'm not going to sort of speed read it and try to give it to you all at once, is I'm going to go through these guys. I'm really eager to read them, and then I'll present some interesting ones the next time I do a cool stuff episode. I think that's probably the best way to approach it. Anyway, thanks again very much, Chris, and stay tuned. There is more to come in future episodes. Great stuff, Chris. Thanks once again. Now, getting back to Brian Wilson guest appearances, let's start with a single A-side, Lady Love, by Dino, Desi, and Billy, written by Brian Wilson and Billy Hinchy. The single was produced by Dino and Billy. Brian's involvement is as a songwriter only. He doesn't appear on the record and seemingly wasn't at the session when it was recorded. The B-side, A Certain Sound, has no Brian Wilson involvement. When it was released on November 2nd, 1970, it had been over a year since Dino, Desi, and Billy's last single, Holly, in August 1969. In fact, the group had officially broken up in late 1969. Desi, along with his sister, continued as a part of the cast of his mother's TV show, Here's Lucy, which he had joined in the fall of 1968. Billy was planning to start attending college. So Lady Love represented a reunion for the group, who mimed to the single on Dino's dad's TV show, The Dean Martin Show, on January 28, 1971, nearly 3 months after its release. As you can see, the guys have definitely changed from the young mop-top teen idols of 1965. The single has a modern adult pop rock sound with lots of brass, a nice melody, and some very nice vocals. If the Beach Boys had recorded it, it wouldn't have sounded out of place on Sunflower alongside tracks like Add Some Music to Your Day and Our Sweet Love. I can imagine that it was strong enough to inspire Dino, Desi, and Billy to reunite to record it, though its hooks are a little subtle, and it's not entirely surprising that it failed to chart in the early 70s. Dino, Desi, and Billy quietly went their separate ways again, leaving Lady Love as their final release. Brian's next guest appearance came on Charles Lloyd's Warm Waters album, released on May 24, 1971. We discussed this back in episode 79, Charles Lloyd Meets the Beach Boys, which is going back a ways, but because of that, I'll just summarize it briefly here. Brian provides backing vocals along with Mike, Allen, and Carl on the track All Life Is One. Other backing vocalists on the track are Billy Cowsill, Retta Hughes, and Michael O'Gara. In addition to backing vocals, Carl is also credited with Moog's synthesizer. It's a very slow, very gentle, largely acoustic track with a slight Indian feel, particularly in some of the guitar playing. For most of the track, the big group of backing vocalists are essentially singing the same thing, making it pretty hard to pick out individual singers apart from Retta Hughes, the only female voice on the track, and she seems to be mixed a little more forward than the others. It ends with a short Hey Jude-like coda with a slightly more complex vocal arrangement. I can distinctly hear Mike and especially Carl in that section. It's a little tougher to distinguish Brian and Al in the mix. The album includes a couple of additional Mike Love appearances. He provides vocals along with Charles Lloyd and Retta Hughes, and a spoken recitation on How Sweet, which, according to the album label, was written by Mike Love. The back cover says it was written by Charles Lloyd with additional lyrics by Mike Love. Ironically, given his history, this might be one time Mike Love got too much writing credit. Additionally, though he's not credited for it on the album, Mike seems to provide the spoken recitation on the track Memphis Belle. It certainly sounds like Mike. Carl, Mike, and Al appear on Charles Lloyd's next album, Waves, released on October 20th, 1972. They provide backing vocals for the song TM, and Mike is credited as co-writer with Charles Lloyd of the song Rishikesh. Brian isn't on the album, and again, we discussed this back in episode 79. The next Brian Wilson-related release is a little more confusing to unravel. In the summer of 1967, Dean Torrance of Jan and Dean recorded a version of the song Vegetables, which was released in October 1967 as a single credited to The Laughing Gravy. The title came from a 1930 short by Jan and Dean's beloved Laurel and Hardy. In the film, Laughing Gravy is Stan and Ollie's dog. It's also Prohibition-era slang for alcohol. We talked a little bit about that single with David Beard in episode 188. The vocals are by Dean Torrance, and according to Mark A. Moore's impeccable The Jan and Dean record book, all instruments are played by Joe Osborne and Larry Knechtel. Brian doesn't seem to have participated in the single, apart from having written it with Van Dyke Parks for the Smile Project. At the time Dean recorded it, the song was unreleased. By the time the Laughing Gravy single came out, the Beach Boys version had been available on Smiley Smile for a few weeks. You'll notice the single contains a really unusual label credit under the title, Song from the album Smiley Smile. I can't think of another single that credits a different version of a song on a different label by a different artist. In any case, the single didn't chart, and as it transpired, was Dean's last released musical endeavor of the 60s. A recording of Vegetables was released late in 1971 on the Jan and Dean Anthology album. The album gives the track a date of 1968 on the back cover and elaborates on the inner sleeve that it was recorded summer 1968 and was not released. Early in 1972, it was also released as a promotional single for the anthology collection with Jan and Dean's Jenny Lee. It contains a notation on the picture sleeve which anyone who knows Vegetables will recognize and appreciate. While the 1968 unreleased notation on the anthology set is clearly a mistake, it's also not indicated that this version of Vegetables isn't the same as the 1967 Laughing Gravy single. Instead, it's the 1967 version reworked and overdubbed with new backing vocals by Brian Wilson and Spring, a new duo he was producing consisting of his wife Marilyn and sister-in-law Diane, who of course were also two-thirds of the trio he produced in the 60s, the Honeys. Naturally, the Brian Wilson backing vocal is the reason I'm including it in this episode. Spring had been signed to United Artists. Dean was putting together the Jan and Dean Anthology for United Artists around the same time. In the late summer or early fall of 1971, Brian, Marilyn, and Diane added their vocals to the 1967 Vegetables, creating what Mark A. Moore aptly described as a fantastic rehash of Vegetables, featuring lush new backing vocals from Brian and Spring. This 1971 version with Brian and Spring seems to be the one that has appeared on most compilations since, though sometimes the liner notes will confusingly give the date of the recording as 1967, then credit Brian, Marilyn, and Diane, creating the impression that their parts were also recorded in 1967. Anyway, it's a fun recording of the song, and I much prefer the 1971 version with the nice vocals from Brian and Spring. Spring's album for United Artists was finally released in July 1972, followed by a single, Shyin' Away and Fallin' in Love, credited to American Spring in April 1973. These are the next two Brian Wilson-related releases on the list. We discussed them way back in episodes 45 and 46. It's been suggested that Brian's participation on these records has been exaggerated. Still, he seems to have been the driving force in getting the projects launched and can be heard on the Spring album, particularly on my favorite track, a beautiful and ethereal take on doo-wop called Sweet Mountain. Of all the records from this period that we'll discuss here, these are closer to being Brian Wilson's side projects than guest appearances. Since I've already devoted a couple of episodes to them, and I suspect may revisit them in depth again later, I'll leave it at that for now, except to say I really love both the album and the single. Brian's next guest appearance came with the other half of Jan and Dean on a Jan Berry promotional single, Don't You Just Know It, credited to Jan and released on June 4th, 1973. The song was originally recorded by New Orleans entertainer Huey Piano Smith and released as a single A-side in January 1958. It went to number 9 on April 14, 1958, becoming, by some distance, the biggest hit of his career. Smith was previously best known for his number 52 hit, Rockin' Pneumonia and the Boogie Woogie Flu, which had peaked on September 16, 1957. Reportedly, the recording for the Jan version was started in 1970. As far as I can tell, the recording dates are uncertain. Reportedly, Brian occasionally hung out with Jan during the early 70s. From what I can find, it appears that Jan and Brian's vocals were probably added much closer to its June 1973 release. Jan had also recorded a basic track for Don't You Just Know It way back in January 1966 during the Jan and Dean Meet Batman sessions. That version went unfinished, and according to Mark A. Moore, the 1973 single is a complete remake. Jan had released his first lead vocal since his catastrophic 1966 car accident with Mother Earth backed with Blue Moon Shuffle a year earlier in February 1972. The single came with an insert containing a short message announcing his return. The B-side for both singles, Blue Moon Shuffle, is the instrumental backing track for a song that will become the A-side of Jan's next single, Tinseltown, Hitch a Ride to Hollywood in 1974. Apart from Don't You Just Know It, none of these recordings have any Brian Wilson involvement. As you'd expect on a Huey Smith song, it features prominent piano, with Jan and Brian trading lines on the vocal. It's a ramshackle but fun performance by two ramshackle performers who seem to genuinely be having fun. The song won't chart, and I'm not even sure it was released commercially. It may have just been pressed as a promo and sent to radio stations to gauge interest. I've got to admit, I find Jan and Dean's late career extremely confusing, even with these great books by Mark A. Moore. If anyone has ever seen a non-promotional copy of Don't You Just Know It or knows more about it, or if I omitted anything or got anything materially wrong, I hope you will pass it along. The next Brian Wilson guest appearances don't come for another 2 years, so this seems like a good place to end it for this week. Between Charles Lloyd, Spring, and Dean Torrance, there was a lot in this episode that we've already discussed on this channel, so I apologize if I tripped over those releases too quickly for people who haven't seen those episodes. Next time and going forward, there is a lot more that's new to this channel. I hope you will join me for that, and I hope you enjoyed this. Thanks for watching. Please hit like if you don't mind, subscribe if you haven't. Have a great week. Bye.